You may remember from last year there are special kind of log functions that are actually included in your calculator. They're more special ones than the ones that we've been working with. But that is something called a common log, which looks like this on your calculator, and a natural log, which looks like this. So here are those buttons. We've got common log right down here. So I'll just put on your calculator, it'll just say log. Or we have natural log, which is ln. That's way down here, and so it'll put an ln there. So we can use those from time to time, but our goal is going to be to not use these, at least in these examples. So if you see just log without a base, what that implies is that we have log base 10. All right, so just make sure you remember that that's a base 10 if you don't see a base there at all. If it's ln, that means log base e. E is a special number that is used mostly in calculus, but we'll take a look at it from time to time here with certain numbers. Now, what is e? You might be curious just to know what that is. First of all, the calculator does have e on here. It's right above the division symbol, second divide. E is about 2.718, but that's, the reason for it is not really super important right now. But as far as evaluating by hand, we're going to take now and look at log of 1,000. You can do it on your calculator if you want, but remember that log of 1,000, that really means log base 10. So what exponent do you put on 10 to get 1,000? That's going to be 3. You can go ahead and try it on your calculator if you want to. You could, just to check these to see if you're doing them right, we could just punch in log of 1,000, and you should see the same thing. It's equal to 3, so that's good to know. ln of e to the third. Remember again that ln has a base of e, and so we're thinking about what exponent do you put on e to give us e to the third. That one's pretty straightforward when you look at it that way. It's just, again, 3. All right, so now ln of 1. Remember, 1's kind of a special number if we have a base of e. And by the way, you'll see that I'm writing all these bases on there. I would really recommend at first that you write those in until you really get a feel for the fact that it's e and 10. But what exponent do you put on e to get 1? What exponent can you put on anything to get 1? That is 0. Okay. For this next one, I guess the strategy I would take here is just to do the 100 squared first. And so change that into log of 10,000. Then figure out, okay, if it's a base of 10, what exponent do you put on 10 to get 10,000? That is going to be 5. Nope, never mind. Sorry, it's going to be 4. All right, next. Log of square root of 1,000. Okay, now this one's a little tricky. One thing to remember about square roots, we can use them as fractional exponents. So before we even do this problem, well, we know it's a base of 10, but before we do this problem, here's what I'd like you to consider. Square root of 1,000, what that is. Now, since we're dealing with a base of 10, one thing I kind of like to do with this is I like to change what's inside the square root to just be 10 to whatever power. So 10 to the third is the same thing as 1,000. So now I've got square root of 10 to the third. But if you'll remember, square root is the same thing as a 1/2 exponent. So this is like saying 10 to the third to the 1/2. And now what I can do with those is I can multiply those exponents together to just make it 10 to the 3/2. So this means log of 10 to the 3/2. So that overall equals 3/2, or 1.5. You'll get 1.5, of course, if you punch it in on your calculator. All right, last one. I want you to remember that or anything with a fraction, that's dealing with a negative exponent. So in this case, we're talking about ln of really e to the negative 2. That's how we could translate this one, because we just flipped it and made it negative. So now, if we've got a base of e, What exponent do we put on e to get e to the negative 2? That is negative 2. So we've done all of those by hand. You can check them by calculator just because your calculator has those buttons, but try to do these by hand. That's the skill that will be handy for you as we go on in this chapter.